We're TSPN, and now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Welcome back to segment 2 of Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond. Again, I'm Kathy, your hostess, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the bookstore next door, Hosseini Company. Wolf and Linda have my wonderland over there, upstairs, downstairs. When I homeschooled my 2 youngest of 4, we spent entire days there, packed a lunch, and just taught them research there. Now, you can go upstairs to Baker Street West. My group did their photo shoot there this year, and man, we had fun. And the tea room opens May 1st in just 2 days. You can book a tea there through Linda Hine. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Rare books are my big thing. So they also sell costumes. They have costumes so you can, we dressed up. And one day I'll bring you a picture to see. I was Sherlock Holmes for an hour. It was rather fun with my little pipe. So check them out. Books, tapes, calendars, you name it, they've got it over there. Our critique group meets there once a month. Hosseini Company Bookstore. And we're going to go back to Scott telling us how he got his start in journalism.
I was an English major at UC Davis, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And there was this conventional wisdom that every English major in the whole school was going to become a teacher. So the contrarian streak in me was just looking for some way to disprove that on some anonymous level. So my last year at Davis, I started as a reporter intern at Sacramento News and Review. And I've kind of maintained some kind of relationship with that news magazine ever since, because I just have a lot of good memories from it. And I think it's a good publication.
Once it got into your blood, is it there for good?
It seems like it, yeah.
It runs through the veins.
Seems like it, yeah.
It does take you over a bit. It was never a career going into it that I thought it was a stopgap, but it slowly became a passion.
I constantly find myself drawn into these little personal feuds now with people who walk away from the career. So it must get in your blood. And
I say that's passion.
You end up taking it really personally. Let's talk about the state of journalism, because it's bleak.
I would love for you to get there. It is.
The cutting floor piece would never have even been necessary if the newspaper industry was in the kind of shape it was 10 years ago. This project, which was 3 years of my life, that I wanted to quit and walk away from several times, I didn't walk away from because it was reporting that just wasn't going to get done
if you didn't do it.
If I didn't do it. And that should alarm and disturb everybody.
I think so. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Well, I'm in kind of this gilded place at SNR for the most part, in that we get to sort of cherry pick these really interesting projects to do, and our mandate is sort of the untold stories, or what's not being covered. But yeah, when you sort of look at you can look at our daily newspaper, the Sacramento Bee, which still has a lot of great reporters, but has just been physically shrinking over the years and losing quality staff, and it's it's bleak financially.
It is.
There are some
across the board.
There are some weeks when the Tuesday or Wednesday edition of the Bee is smaller than the paper I'm in charge of, the Roseville Press Tribune's Friday edition.
Really?
It shouldn't be that way. There's 128,000 residents in Roseville, and how many in Sacramento? I mean, the scale's way off.
The cities are all bigger now. I grew up when there was the Union, Sacramento Union in the morning, and the Bee was the evening paper. And they were both big. The Union was a little smaller, but the Bee was huge.
Right.
Just huge.
They still haven't figured out how to make money off of a product that everyone wants and needs, and yet that you're giving away for free online in most cases. It shouldn't be that hard, but us journalists have never been that great at numbers. So.
Well, you journalists are kind of under attack worldwide right now. You're really being a journalist today, and especially the kind of stories you're covering, you're putting your life on the line.
Well, and there's a huge difference between what Raheem and I do as police reporters in Northern California, what some journalists are doing right now in other parts of the world. But I tell you, I was at
locally, Scott, I think you've covered some stories that put you in danger.
Okay, but I was at a conference in Washington, D.C. in November, and I'm not going to say their names, but there were two reporters there at the conference with me, one of whom has been shot in the face in Afghanistan, had half his face rebuilt, and the other has been abducted and held by Islamic militants in Syria. These two gentlemen are making the same amount of money as I do, sitting in my office in Roseville, and they can barely pay their bills. And you look at the kind of personal risk and that they've gone through and put it on the line for the American public, and they don't even know where their next paycheck's coming from.
There's something wrong with that.
There's something wrong with it. All these Americans want good, strong international reporting from experienced reporters, but they're allowing those newspapers to eliminate all those staff positions and pay freelancers. And that's everybody who's a foreign correspondent now is a freelancer, which means they have no benefits, no stability, and if they get hurt on the job like those two guys, they've got no financial backup, they've got no health care. It's really disturbing, and frankly, I don't understand why more people aren't upset.
Well, actually, it should have been going in the other direction. Instead of that direction, it should have been going in the other direction where it's regressing.
And you don't see the people that run our industry. How silent were they when 2 different reporters were beheaded last year? And what did they? And there was no story or coverage on the fact that one of those papers played a role in that by not providing that individual with the equipment and safety things he needed. And I was disappointed in the coverage. Why weren't people asking what role his employer, who had him on a freelance basis, played in that?
And yet, are you still finding, as journalists, that people still want to read? It's not like they've lost interest in journalism.
If you look at the web analytics of our online readership, we probably have more readers than ever.
I think Pew just put out their annual journalism survey, and it showed a huge increase in how people are consuming their news via their mobile devices. I can't remember the exact percentage, if it was like 40% of readers are coming through mobile devices, but it was, to me, it was a huge number. And I find myself, I like the ink-stained paper in my hands, but even I am finding myself more just thumbing through my phone for
I'm still
for
ink-stained lady here.
But no matter where you get the numbers, if you're looking at the digital newspapers, we know that there's a huge audience and a huge demand. I guess part of the problem, obviously, is the delivery system, the financial model around the delivery system. But that's not the whole story either.
No, it's not.
Another thing nobody talks about, there's this sort of myth that technology somehow killed investigative reporting, but greed killed investigative reporting, and it killed almost 18 years ago before the internet took a dime away from these the coffers of these newspaper companies. They were buying out their best reporters' contracts. They were laying people off when they had 30-40% overall profit, just to make more money for the shareholders on Wall Street. So,
and do you feel real common knowledge or not?
I don't feel it's common knowledge. That's why I'm saying it on your show, Kathy. So,
Scott, you go.
But and now, I mean, certainly technology has played a role. Like I just said, there's a big problem with the financial model around the delivery system right now. But we have to, I don't know how you feel. I feel like we have to hope technology is the only thing that can save it now somehow.
And there's kind of a desperation that's creeping in. There's always been, but it feels I was at, sort of similar to Scott, I was at a conference in New York and was talking to a lot of journalists, and so many of them were talking about how their supervisors, their managers, their publishers were, pushing them to get their content on blogs, on their news blogs immediately without any sort of checks and balances on that content, without editors taking a look at it. And how the focus was on what really struck a chord with Twitter users or Facebook users. It was all about clickbait rather than good probing content. And it's not that the audience can't tell you what they like and what you should do more of, but sometimes you're telling the audience something they don't know they should be aware of. And to put so much focus on Facebook likes is a bit scary.
It's in my publishing world too. And it's a shame because that was a requirement to have so many thousand.
Right.
I won't pay for Facebook or any of those
Oh, right.
likes. I refuse to do that. And I screen every single request that comes in, which I think we all should be doing. So we're going in this wrong direction.
I hear people talking about both the good and bad of this new media, and I think you do see both. I think maybe we're on the cusp of just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. But I think the bad part of it is you have the people who own these companies or make their money off of them, and the desperation of their boards in terms of just throwing everything at the wall and changing their models every 3 to 6 months. It causes huge upheaval within the newsrooms because you have different priorities every 6 months. And you're taking these journalists away from what they should be doing, which is getting to know their communities and really digging
So
deep
the
into
loss of the personal contact and communication, I think, is part of it. That's me from the other end of it. I read what you write. And I think that's important to still have. I'm not negative on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter.
Sure.
I'm on those things. And I don't think it's ever gotten me. I don't know. You don't know the scope of it. But I think there's been a loss that if we don't get to it now, I think we're going to lose even more.
It would be hard to lose more.
Well, we're right there.
The newsrooms are smaller than they've ever been. So it's kind of the point where...
Let's really dig into that when we come back. I do not want to lose that because it's important. I hope you're listening. I hope you're really listening, and you'll come back and join us for the third segment, and we'll see you then. Bye.
You're watching your local